Secrets shimmer in the summer heat as the city's wealthiest gather at the grandest hotel in Manhattan. Billionaire heir. Nicholas Harrington is about to marry socialite Dahlia Ashcroft in a ceremony so lavish it has paparazzi climbing every fence and fans lining the streets. The bride walks down an aisle of pristine white roses. Cameras flash, but suddenly all eyes shift to a commotion outside the gates. A pregnant woman collapses on the marble steps, clutching a ring that gleams brighter than the midday sun. Whispers and gasps ripple through the crowd. The ring on her finger threatens to unravel every vow about to be spoken. Manhattan gleamed under a flawless summer sky as the Harrington estate prepared for the wedding of the decade. Billionaire heir Nicholas Harrington was about to marry Dahlia Ashcroft, a glamorous socialite whose family name carried as much weight as her designer gown. Media drones buzzed overhead, and exclusive guests mingled among sculptures and imported orchids. Inside his suite, Nicholas adjusted his tie, nerves prickling beneath his polished exterior. He confided in his best friend Marcus, uneasy about the day ahead. "It's not cold feet," he admitted, "but something feels off. Dahlia's been distant lately." Marcus dismissed it as wedding stress, but Nicholas couldn't shake the unease. Though their whirlwind romance had been full of elegance and allure, Dahlia had always kept parts of herself guarded, and whispers of her father's financial troubles still lingered. In another wing, Dahlia prepared in silence, haunted by a mysterious phone call from the night before. Don't say yes to a lifetime built on illusions. As the orchestra swelled and photographers jostled for the perfect shot, neither bride nor groom sensed that their perfect day was about to be upended by a secret outside the gates, one that would stop the wedding cold. Across town, in a more modest part of Manhattan, Olivia Martinez clutched a worn leather diary against her chest. She was several months pregnant, and anxiety flared in her dark eyes. She had spent the last of her savings on a taxi to get here. For weeks, she'd resisted the urge to step into Nicholas Harrington's orbit again, but there was no escaping destiny. She needed answers for her unborn child's future, if nothing else. Olivia had once been one of Harrington Enterprises' rising stars, a bright, diligent staffer in the marketing department. She had a gift for strategic thinking and discovered she could hold her own among the cutthroat corporate elite. Nicholas had recognized her talent, immediately championing her ideas, inviting her to high-level meetings. From after-work gatherings to early morning coffees, their professional rapport had turned personal in the blink of an eye. The affair was as intense as it was hidden. Nicholas, then recently out of a relationship, had found in Olivia a genuine connection that was free of the usual society constraints. Her lack of social pedigree didn't matter to him. At least that's what he had told her. Their days together were filled with passionate, stolen moments, laughter, and plans for the future. She'd fallen for him completely, believing he felt the same. Then abruptly, Nicholas had distanced himself. Work responsibilities overshadowed their personal life, and the demands from his mother, Elizabeth, only intensified. At first, Olivia thought the pressure simply made him withdraw for a while, but when he stopped returning her calls altogether, she felt her entire world crack. Desperate for an explanation, she tried to confront him, but Elizabeth Harrington intervened. Elizabeth curtly told her that Nicholas had moved on. Any illusions Olivia had about a lasting relationship needed to end. Humiliated and heartbroken, Olivia left Harrington Enterprises for good. She returned to her family in Queens, drowning in sorrow and confusion, until a month later, when the pregnancy test she took turned positive. She'd never summoned the courage to tell Nicholas. Her phone calls remained unanswered, and she had no desire to go through Elizabeth again. She resolved to raise the child on her own, in the quiet of her family home. But as her baby bump grew, so did her fear. Her finances were tight and her father's health deteriorated. Knowing the child was also Nicholas's, she began to worry about a life overshadowed by regret, secrecy, and struggles. It was a scandal waiting to erupt. The Harrington heir had impregnated a woman from outside his high society circle. On top of that, he'd since become engaged to someone else, someone with a pedigreed name and fortune. That was how Olivia discovered Nicholas's upcoming wedding. She'd seen the headlines, "Billion-dollar wedding of the century," and Nicholas Harrington ties the knot, with Dahlia Ashcroft. Glitzy photos had accompanied every article, fueling her heartbreak and sense of betrayal. But heartbreak gave way to resolve. Her child deserved better than a lifetime of questions about an absent father. She decided to confront Nicholas one last time. If he refused to take responsibility, at least she would have tried. So here she was, stepping out of the taxi before the grand Harrington estate. One hand clutched the tattered diary in which she'd written every memory of her moments with Nicholas. Something that might prove her story was real. The other hand rested on her swollen belly, feeling the baby's gentle kick. Guests in designer attire were streaming through the mansion's gates, dazzled by the horticultural wonders and the top-tier security. Olivia could feel stares following her as she made her way up the steps. She stood out in her plain sundress and comfortable flats, sweat forming at her temples from the high afternoon sun and her mounting nerves. A security guard stepped forward, posture rigid. "Invitation." "Ma'am, I don't have one," Olivia stammered, anxiety lacing her words. "But I need to see Nicholas Harrington." The guard's expression was a practiced mixture of disapproval and pity. "I'm sorry, but you can't enter without an invitation." Olivia's pulse pounded. My name is Olivia Martinez. I used to work for Harrington Enterprises. I need to speak to Nicholas. It's an emergency." The guard gave her a dismissive once-over. "You and 100 others out here." She opened her mouth to argue, but the midday heat and her nerves were getting to her. Her vision blurred. Before she could stabilize herself, a wave of dizziness crashed over her. She stumbled, tried to reach for the guard's arm, and felt darkness closing in. The last thing she remembered was the swirl of a crisp tuxedo and worried gasps. When Olivia regained a moment of consciousness, she heard frantic whispers. People were calling for medics. Strangers hovered around her, some kneeling, others stepping back uncertainly. One woman exclaimed, "She's pregnant. Someone help her." Olivia tried to speak. Her gaze drifted to her left hand, where she wore a simple ring. A ring Nicholas had once given her, with the promise, "No matter what happens, wear this. And know I'm thinking of you." It shimmered faintly in the sunlight. The ring that had meant the world to her. She wanted to stand, to push past the guards and demand to see the groom, but her body wasn't cooperating. Then she drifted into darkness once more. In the distance, cameras started clicking. The spectacle of a pregnant woman fainting at the gates of the biggest wedding in the country was too tantalizing for any tabloid photographer to ignore. Whispers swirled. Who is she? Look at that ring. Could she be from his past? Some onlookers speculated it was a publicity stunt. Others rushed to help. But as the bride prepared to walk down the aisle and the official wedding music soared, a new disruptive energy filled the air. Fate was about to intervene in the ceremony with a secret no amount of wealth or status could bury. The wedding ceremony had begun in the estate's lush rose garden. Rows of satin-covered chairs and an aisle strewn with pale pink petals led to a grand arch made of intertwined white lilies. The officiant stood beneath it, looking both formal and nervous. The pressure of uniting such powerful families weighed heavily. The audience glimmered with New York's top-tier socialites, international business moguls, and paparazzi disguised as invited media. Murmurs rippled through the crowd about the day's earlier spectacle, but no one dared overshadow the bride's entrance. Nicholas tried to suppress the rush of anticipation thrumming through him. His mother, Elizabeth Harrington, sat in the front row, an immaculate figure in an elegant turquoise gown and matching hat. She caught Nicholas's gaze and smiled with that regal Harrington air, as if to say, "Everything is perfect today." On the bride's side, Dahlia's parents, Damien Ashcroft, and the famous socialite-turned-philanthropist Cassandra Ashcroft, positioned themselves proudly. Although rumors persisted about the Ashcrofts' financial troubles, Dahlia's family still presented a picture of timeless sophistication. The wedding planner signaled that the bride was about to make her entrance. The string quartet shifted into a delicate melody. All rose to their feet. Dahlia stepped into view at the far end of the aisle, radiant in her couture gown. She was a vision of grace. Each step measured, her eyes locked on Nicholas. Cameras snapped, capturing every angle of her slow, elegant progress. Nicholas felt his heart swell. Perhaps the tension he'd been harboring all morning was just premarital jitters. Soon he would be bound to Dahlia, forging a powerful alliance and hopefully a harmonious life. But halfway down the aisle, before she could reach the arch, the music abruptly cut off. Gasps rippled across the garden. The hush was so absolute, one could hear the rustle of Dahlia's gown. People craned their necks to see the cause of the interruption. At the edge of the garden, near the open gateway to the estate, a small crowd had gathered. Behind them, an ambulance's lights flashed, and paramedics rushed toward the commotion. Nicholas exchanged a confused glance with Marcus, who looked equally startled. Dahlia paused, a fleeting look of alarm in her eyes. Off in the distance, they heard the agitated chatter of guests. A pregnant woman had collapsed on the marble steps. She was wearing some kind of ring. She was calling Nicholas's name. A jolt of recognition prickled over Nicholas's skin. A pregnant woman, wearing a ring without warning. Images of Olivia Martinez, the brilliant marketing staffer, the woman who once meant everything, flashed through his mind. He felt a sudden pang of dread. Could it be her? But how could she be here, fainting at his wedding of all times? Dahlia glanced nervously from Nicholas to the crowd beyond. She saw uncertainty etched across his face. The officiant tried to regain control, clearing his throat and murmuring, "Please be seated, everyone. We'll resume in just a moment." Instinct propelled Nicholas toward the perimeter. He stepped off the dais, ignoring the murmurs of the guests. Dahlia called after him, her voice trembling with confusion and a flicker of panic. Yet he couldn't stop himself from investigating. Something drew him, a mixture of concern and guilt that throbbed in his chest. As Nicholas approached the group, he caught sight of Olivia lying on a stretcher. Her face was pale strands of dark hair clinging to her damp forehead. When she saw him, her eyes fluttered open. She reached weakly for him, her voice scarcely above a whisper. "Nicholas," he froze in place, heart pounding. Memories collided, late nights in the office, secret dates, gentle smiles that once belonged only to them. In the same moment, he noticed the ring he had gifted her, glinting on her hand. He'd forgotten it, but she hadn't. Behind him, the assembled crowd strained for a glimpse, speculation already spiraling. Tabloid journalists clicked furiously on their cameras. On the dais, Dahlia lifted a trembling hand to her lips. She could see the shock on Nicholas's face, the tender way he crouched to speak to the mysterious woman. A wave of jealousy and fear surged inside her. She had no idea who this stranger was, but it was clear she was important enough to stop Nicholas in his tracks on his wedding day. Elizabeth Harrington, too, stood up, her posture as rigid as a marble statue. She recognized Olivia. She had orchestrated her quiet removal from Nicholas's life, now that carefully constructed reality was crumbling before her very eyes. Elizabeth felt her breath grow shallow, the color draining from her cheeks. One of the paramedics turned to Nicholas. "Do you know this woman?" he asked. "She's dehydrated, exhausted, and probably overheated from standing in the sun." Nicholas swallowed hard. "Yes," he admitted. I know her." Olivia tried to speak, but her voice was lost to the swirl of chaos. The crowd around them grew, the atmosphere crackling with tension. Dahlia stood frozen at the other end of the aisle, uncertain whether to continue to the altar or retreat. The officiant exchanged panicked glances with the wedding coordinator, uncertain if the ceremony should halt or proceed. In that charged moment, the ring on Olivia's finger shone like a beacon, quietly telling a story that threatened to rewrite the script of Nicholas's perfect wedding. And in the hush that followed, every mask of decorum threatened to slip, revealing the tangled secrets lurking beneath Manhattan's gilded surface. "Stop the ceremony," Nicholas declared, in a voice steadier than he felt, though it was the last thing he ever expected to say on his wedding day. He couldn't stand idly by while Olivia was whisked away without understanding what was going on. The entire wedding party seemed frozen. Guests muttered among themselves, exchanging scandalized glances. A hush fell over the string quartet. Dahlia's face contorted with panic, her bouquet trembling in her hands. "What do you mean, stop the ceremony?" she finally whispered, voice breaking. "Nicholas, what is happening?" He looked back at her eyes, heavy with regret. "I need a moment. I'm sorry." Before Dahlia could protest, Nicholas rushed to accompany the paramedics who were carrying Olivia into the mansion's side entrance. Elizabeth Harrington marched after him, face stern, while Dahlia remained rooted in place, too shocked and bewildered to move. The paramedics set Olivia down in a cool private lounge inside the mansion. Her breathing had steadied, but worry etched her features. Nicholas knelt beside her, a tempest of questions in his gaze. Elizabeth stood at the doorway, her expression unreadable, occasionally glancing at her watch, as if to say, "Time is money, and this fiasco is costing us dearly." Olivia Nicholas murmured, unsure where to begin. "What are you doing here? What happened?" She took a shaky breath. The paramedics provided her with a glass of water, which she sipped gratefully. I needed to see you," she managed. "It couldn't wait," as if realizing for the first time the presence of Elizabeth. Olivia's eyes flicked uncomfortably in her direction. Nicholas noticed this and motioned for his mother to step outside. Elizabeth hesitated, lips pursed, but Nicholas insisted. "Mom, please. I need to talk to her alone." With a stern huff, Elizabeth left, shutting the door behind her. Olivia seemed to relax just slightly. "I know this is a terrible time," she began, tears threatening to spill. "But I didn't know what else to do." "You wouldn't return my messages," and Nicholas frowned. "Messages? What messages? I never got any calls or texts from you." A mix of frustration and heartbreak flashed across Olivia's face. "I left them with your mother. I tried to call you on your personal phone, but it was disconnected. Later I was told you wanted nothing more to do with me. That was around the time I found out I was pregnant." Silence thundered between them. Nicholas's eyes widened, darting to her belly, as if only now registering the obvious. pregnant?" She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm sorry to burst into your life like this, especially on your wedding day. But I'm out of options. I tried to support myself, but finances are tight, and I realized you have a right to know. Our baby deserves better than to be a secret." Nicholas's world spun. Memories resurfaced from the swirl of their stolen kisses to the hush of corporate hallways where they'd talk late into the night. How could he not have known guilt surged in him as he wondered how many of her calls and messages had been intercepted presumably by his mother? Elizabeth had always been fiercely protective, but this time she'd gone too far. Outside, footsteps approached the door. Marcus slipped in, shutting it quietly behind him. "Nick," he said, voice cautious. "What's going on?" "The guests are getting restless. Dahlia's distraught." Nicholas glanced at Marcus, then back at Olivia. "I just found out I might be a father." Marcus's eyes bulged. He'd always suspected Nicholas had a deeper connection with Olivia. He remembered office gossip before she left, but this was a twist he hadn't seen coming. "Nicholas," he whispered, "the wedding is on pause. You have 1,000 guests out there, including half the city's elite, waiting for you." "What are we going to do?" Nicholas buried his face in his hands. His mind spun the wedding Dahlia, the baby, Olivia's desperation, his mother's manipulations. He had half a thought to rage at Elizabeth for interfering in his life, but he focused on Olivia. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice shaky. "Is the baby okay?" She nodded, wiping tears. "The doctor says everything is fine. Just need rest." "I'm sorry, Nicholas, but I had no other choice." Marcus placed a hand on Nicholas's shoulder. "We need to decide what happens next, man. The press is already salivating over this. If we don't do something, the rumor mill will destroy your reputation. Dahlia's, Olivia's, everyone's." Just then, Elizabeth flung the door open, ignoring all pretenses of privacy. "Son, enough. The guests are waiting. This wedding must proceed. Whatever mess this woman has created." Nicholas cut her off, his voice cold. "You lied to me. You told Olivia I wanted nothing to do with her." "Didn't you?" Elizabeth bristled. "I did what was necessary. Olivia wasn't part of our world. There are expectations. You have your duties as a Harrington. Your wedding to Dahlia will solidify our alliances, maintain our status." Nicholas felt a hot rush of anger. "This isn't about alliances. It's my life." "You had no right to interfere." Olivia tried to sit up, guilt etched across her face. "Nicholas, please don't fight with your mother over me. That's not why I came. I only wanted you to know about the baby and see if you cared." His gaze softened as he looked at her. "Of course I care. I just need a moment to think." But there was no time. Outside whispers and speculation rose to a roar. The string quartet had stopped, and guests were milling around. Some were checking their phones, likely to see if the story was already hitting gossip websites. Dahlia's father, Damien Ashcroft, marched around in frustration, while Cassandra Ashcroft fanned her face with trembling fingers, scandalized. And Dahlia. She stared blankly at the arch tears brimming behind her carefully applied makeup, uncertain whether the day she'd been promised had been snatched away forever. Nicholas stepped outside the lounge into the hallway, where the wedding coordinator hovered anxiously. "What should we do?" the coordinator asked, eyes bulging. "Should we tell the guests to take a break?" Or Nicholas exhaled shakily. "Tell everyone the ceremony is delayed. Just give me time to figure this out." And as the wedding planner scurried off to appease the unsettled crowd, Nicholas returned to face Olivia, Marcus, and Elizabeth. Staring into Olivia's trembling eyes, he knew that his once simple storyline, a wedding uniting two wealthy families, was now overshadowed by the unstoppable truth of a life he had unknowingly set in motion. This day meant to seal a perfect union was unraveling into a tapestry of secrets, lies, and heartbreak, with the entire world watching. As the ceremony unraveled, Dahlia escaped to a secluded part of the garden, her wedding gown dragging through marble paths. Questions raced in her mind. Who was the pregnant woman? Why had Nicholas abandoned her at the altar to rush to her side? Her mother, Cassandra, and father Damien soon joined her. Cassandra urged calm, calling the situation a misunderstanding. Damien was more direct, reminding her of what was at stake, their family's fragile financial standing, and the strategic alliance the marriage would secure. But Dahlia wasn't thinking about status. She'd wanted love, not just legacy. "She's pregnant," Dahlia whispered. "He left me standing alone. Her parents insisted she continue." With the wedding. "Marriage is compromise," Cassandra said, "and Nicholas still loves you." But Dahlia wasn't convinced. The look in Nicholas's eyes had said something different. And worse, she recalled that warning call. Don't say yes to a lifetime built on illusions. With resolve, Dahlia stood. "I need to speak to Nicholas. Alone. I need the truth before I make any choice." Upstairs in a quiet bedroom of the Harrington estate, away from the prying eyes of hundreds of guests, tension crackled like static in the air. Olivia was resting on a chaise lounge with a cool towel against her forehead, while Marcus stood by the window looking down at the commotion in the gardens. Nicholas paced the length of the room, fists clenching and unclenching. At last Dahlia stepped in, still wearing her wedding gown. The airy folds of silk and lace contrasted sharply with her tense demeanor. She closed the door gently and found herself face to face with a scene she never could have imagined the love of her life. His ex-lover, who was pregnant with his child, and their mutual friend Marcus, who looked like he'd rather be on a deserted island than in this powder keg of a situation. For a moment, no one spoke. Dahlia, throat tight, finally cleared her voice. "Nicholas, I need to talk to you." Her gaze slid to Olivia. "Alone, if that's all right." Marcus glanced at Nicholas, who nodded. Marcus gently motioned for Olivia to follow him out. Olivia hesitated, placing a protective hand on her belly. She looked at Nicholas, worry etched across her features. Dahlia felt a pang of unexpected sympathy. The woman was clearly exhausted, vulnerable, and pregnant. "Yet she's carrying the child of my fiancée," Dahlia reminded herself, steeling her resolve. Once Olivia and Marcus left the room, Dahlia turned to Nicholas. Her eyes were bright with tears, but her voice was steady. "Tell me everything." He swallowed hard. I met Olivia a little over a year ago. She worked in my marketing department. We started seeing each other. It was serious for a while, but then things got complicated. He paced, running a hand through his hair. My mother tried to push me into other social circles, insisted I needed a partner who could handle the responsibilities of being a Harrington. Olivia. She wasn't part of that world. There were so many outside pressures. I started pulling back. When Olivia tried to reach me, I didn't know. My mother apparently kept her messages from me. Then I met you at that charity gala, and our relationship took off. I had no idea Olivia was pregnant. I thought she'd moved on. Dahlia's chest tightened. "So you didn't break things off with her properly? You just drifted away because of your mother's interference, and you never even knew you might have a child." Nicholas's voice caught. I'm guilty of not fighting harder for what I felt. I was weak. My mother's controlling nature, the demands of the business, and then meeting you, it all swept me along, but I never meant to abandon Olivia. Dahlia bit her lip, tears threatening to spill. She looked down at her own ring, the one Nicholas had given her when he proposed. It sparkled, an almost mocking reminder of their intended future. Do you love her? Nicholas flinched. He looked at Dahlia, a mix of remorse and affection in his gaze. I cared about her deeply, but so much time has passed. I've fallen in love with you, Dahlia. Our relationship might have started because of social expectations, but it became real for me. I love you. She studied his face, trying to discern the truth. In his eyes, she recognized genuine affection, but also shame and confusion, and the baby Nicholas's voice trembled. I can't walk away from my child. I won't. I have a responsibility. I have to be part of this child's life. Then what about us? Dahlia asked softly. Nicholas closed his eyes, shoulders slumping. I don't know. We can't just pretend this hasn't happened. Olivia, she's not trying to destroy our wedding. She was desperate. She needed to talk to me. And she's right. I deserve the chance to care for my child. A tear slipped down Dahlia's cheek. She pictured the tabloid headlines, the scandal that would erupt if Nicholas acknowledged fathering a child outside of marriage. And she thought of her parents, who pinned their fortunes on this union. Above all, she thought of her own heart. I don't want to marry a man whose heart is torn. If we stand at that altar, I want to be certain there are no secrets, no regrets. Can you promise me that Nicholas inhaled a shaky breath? I want to. I will. But I need to speak with Olivia first, figure out arrangements for the baby. This wedding, it can't happen while everything is in chaos. I need to do the right thing. Dahlia's hand shook as she removed the engagement ring from her finger. She handed it to Nicholas. I can't stand before the world with doubts. Handle your responsibilities, Nicholas. Sort out your feelings for Olivia. Then, if you want this marriage to happen, come back to me honestly. Until then, I'm taking a step back. Nicholas stared at the ring in his palm. Heartbreak etched across his features. He reached for Dahlia's hand, but she pulled away. Tears burned her eyes. She feared more than anything that this might be the end of what they had. But she couldn't stand in a wedding gown vowing eternal devotion under such a cloud of betrayal and uncertainty. They stood in anguished silence, neither knowing what came next. Outside, the sounds of restless guests, paparazzi, and concerned voices grew louder. Dahlia finally turned and left wedding gown swishing behind her. The moment she walked out, Nicholas felt an ache he couldn't describe. He'd never wanted to hurt her, yet here he stood with a ring in his hand and a child on the way. Everything he'd once taken for granted, shattered by the force of truth. Downstairs, the Harrington mansion buzzed with confusion and worry. People trickled into the grand foyer, searching for any sign of the bride or groom. Caterers stood by with trays of champagne, uncertain whether to serve them. Security guards whispered into earpieces, attempting to manage the chaos at the gate. Outside, the media was in a frenzy, capturing every moment of the unfolding scandal. Elizabeth Harrington swept through the crowd like an icy wind, her elegant gown trailing behind her. She offered perfunctory smiles, reassuring guests that the ceremony was merely delayed due to a minor medical emergency. Once out of earshot, however, her expression grew stormy. Her entire plan to marry Nicholas to Dahlia, uniting two powerful families, was falling apart right in front of her. She spotted her son descending the staircase, looking disheveled and lost. "Nicholas," she hissed, pulling him aside into the library, where they could speak privately. "What on earth are you doing? This wedding is crucial to our family's future. The Ashcrofts are ready to bolt if we don't proceed." Nicholas bristled, jaw tense. "Mother, do you even hear yourself? Dahlia and I can't just pretend nothing happened. Olivia is pregnant with my child. I have to do the right thing by her." Elizabeth's eyes flashed. "The right thing. The right thing is to honor your commitments. We've arranged this wedding for months, invested millions in forging an alliance with the Ashcrofts. They need our money. We need their influence, and your personal indiscretions are jeopardizing everything." Nicholas exhaled, struggling to keep his temper in check. "My personal indiscretion is an unborn child, Mother. A child I had no idea about, because someone made sure I never got Olivia's messages." Elizabeth lifted her chin, unrepentant. "I did what was necessary to protect you and this family. That woman was a distraction, a liability we couldn't afford. I never imagined she'd reappear like this, but it changes nothing. You will marry Dahlia. We will handle Olivia quietly, settle her financially, if needed, and move on." A flicker of shock and disgust crossed Nicholas's face. "You want me to abandon my child for business, for status?" She pressed her lips together in a tight line. "Nicholas, darling, you don't have to abandon the child. You can provide for it financially. But Dahlia Ashcroft is the wife you need, the mother of your legitimate heirs, the baby with Olivia. Let's be realistic. It's not part of the Harrington legacy. Her background, her lack of social standing, it's a ticking time bomb for scandal." Nicholas stared at his mother, feeling as though he was seeing her for the first time. He knew Elizabeth was fiercely protective that she lived and breathed the Harrington name. But her callous attitude toward an innocent child was more than he could stomach. "I'm not you," he said quietly, voice trembling with suppressed anger. "I won't throw money at my responsibilities and call it love. I won't marry Dahlia under false pretenses when my heart is torn. She deserves better than that." Elizabeth's facade cracked, a flash of genuine fear lighting her eyes. "If you break off this wedding, the Ashcrofts will withdraw all their support. Our synergy with them is vital to Harrington Enterprises' expansion in Europe. Investors will see your decision as instability. Our stock prices will plummet. Do you understand what's at stake?" He did understand. Decades of carefully cultivated reputation, billions of dollars in business deals, philanthropic efforts that hinged on social alliances. But he also understood something else, that if he let his mother bully him now, he would never escape the cycle of living by others' rules. "Yes, I understand," Nicholas replied, voice steady. "But I won't marry Dahlia until I figure things out with Olivia. And if Dahlia won't wait, so be it. I'll accept the consequences." Elizabeth's hand shook. "Nicholas, listen to me. You either fix this by marrying Dahlia as planned, or you risk everything your grandfather built. I will not watch you tear down the Harrington name over a mistake." Nicholas's eyes hardened. "This isn't a mistake. This is my child's life. If you can't support me in that, maybe it's time I take a step back from the family business." He turned to go, but Elizabeth grabbed his arm. "You'd walk away from Harrington Enterprises, from the heritage that's in your blood." He gently removed his mother's hand. "I'd walk away from anything if it meant doing what's right. I'm not a puppet, Mother. I'm your son." With that, he left the library. Elizabeth stood motionless, fury and fear warring in her expression. She had orchestrated so many details, paving the way for Dahlia's entrance, shutting Olivia out, and yet the entire plan was unraveling. She'd never anticipated Nicholas's sense of morality clashing with her ambition so forcefully. Her chest tightened with dread. The Harrington name had weathered countless storms, but this was different. This was a threat from within, and Elizabeth vowed not to let it topple her empire. In a quieter wing of the mansion, Olivia rested on a plush sofa, still recovering from her fainting spell. Marcus offered her a glass of water and some light snacks. Though she was appreciative, her mind raced with guilt and uncertainty. She hadn't planned to cause such a scene. She only wanted to speak with Nicholas privately. But fate had conspired to make her the center of attention on the biggest day of his life. "I'm so sorry," Olivia whispered, glancing at Marcus. "I never meant to ruin the wedding. This must seem like some melodramatic stunt, but I promise I was desperate to talk to him." Marcus shook his head, expression kind. "It's all right. If Nicholas had known you were pregnant, I'm sure he would have acted differently." Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. "Do you really think so?" A part of me was terrified he'd reject us again, but I had to try. A noise in the corridor made them look up. Nicholas entered, looking fraught but resolute. Marcus excused himself, leaving them to speak privately. Olivia sat up straighter, one hand protectively over her belly. Nicholas drew a breath. "How are you feeling? Are you okay?" She nodded, tears threatening again. "I'm fine. Just overwhelmed. I should leave Nicholas. Your mother made it clear I'm not welcome, and Dahlia, this is her wedding day. I don't want to cause more drama." He lowered himself onto a nearby chair, searching her gaze. "I need to know everything. When did you find out you were pregnant? Why didn't you come to me sooner?" She exhaled. "I tried. I came to your office, but your mother intercepted me. She told me you'd moved on and didn't want to see me. I left messages, letters, none reached you, obviously. By the time it sank in that you'd abandoned me, I was already a month pregnant. I thought maybe I could raise this baby on my own. But my father lost his job. Medical bills started piling up. I kept reading about your engagement and wondered how you could be so callous. Eventually, I realized you had a right to know, even if you wanted nothing to do with us. I couldn't hide your child from you forever." His jaw clenched, anger flaring at his mother's deceit. "I never got your letters or messages. If I had known, I wouldn't have let you shoulder this alone." "I'm so sorry, Olivia." He hesitated, shame heavy in his voice. "I did move on, in a sense. I met Dahlia, and my mother was pressuring me to marry someone who fit our social circle. But I never intended to abandon you like this." She tried not to let the sting show on her face. Even now, hearing him say he moved on lanced her heart. But she saw guilt in his eyes, sincerity in his voice. "What happens now?" Nicholas swallowed. "I don't know. Dahlia has called off the wedding for now. She's not sure she can marry me until I figure out my responsibilities to you and the baby. My mother is furious, the Ashcrofts are in panic mode, and the media is having a field day." Olivia stared down at her hands, mind spinning. "I never wanted to destroy your life, Nicholas. I just wanted you to know about our child. If you want to be involved, I'd like that. If not, I'll respect your decision. But I can't keep living with this secret." He reached for her hand gently. "I do want to be involved. No matter what happens with Dahlia, you and this baby are my responsibility, my family. I'll provide for you, help you with any medical care, living expenses, whatever you need. But more than that, I want to be a father if you'll let me." Emotion swelled in Olivia's eyes. This was the Nicholas she'd fallen in love with, compassionate, strong, loyal. The question of Dahlia still loomed unspoken between them. Olivia didn't want to be the other woman or a perpetual source of scandal. She only wanted a stable environment for her child. "Nicholas," she whispered, "I'm scared. About everything." He squeezed her hand, tears glistening in his own eyes. "Me too. But we'll figure this out, and you won't have to face it alone." They sat there holding hands in a quiet, bittersweet moment, unaware that just outside, Elizabeth Harrington was gathering allies, and Dahlia Ashcroft was weighing her options. The wedding might be postponed, but the tension of the day was far from over. Each decision they made now would shape their futures and the future of the child whose presence had changed everything. As the day wore on, the wedding guests grew restless. Some milled about the garden, sipping champagne and gossiping. Others lingered by the catering tables, uncertain whether to stay or leave. A handful of unscrupulous reporters pretended to be part of the wait staff, eavesdropping on hushed conversations. The entire estate thrummed with a tense energy that threatened to explode at any moment. Dahlia reappeared in the garden, no longer wearing her veil, and with her makeup touched up, but still in her wedding gown. She ignored the stares and murmurs. She spotted Olivia stepping out onto the lawn, escorted by Nicholas. Their appearance together caused an immediate ripple of attention. Heart-pounding, Dahlia marched toward them. She had tried to calm herself, to analyze the situation rationally. But seeing the two of them side by side tightened her throat in a wave of heartbreak and, yes, jealousy. Yet she also felt a strange sense of compassion. Olivia looked tired and scared. Nicholas seemed torn, guilt in his eyes. Dahlia reminded herself, "She is carrying his child. Whatever anger I feel, it isn't her fault alone." A small tense circle formed as Dahlia approached. Marcus, who had been lingering at the edge, joined them for moral support. The hush around them was so profound that even the birds seemed to have stopped singing. Nicholas glanced at Dahlia, heartbreak etched across his features. He started to speak, but Dahlia held up a hand. "I deserve some answers," Dahlia said quietly, her voice cracking despite her efforts. "Olivia, please tell me. What do you want from Nicholas?" Olivia swallowed, face pale. "I just want him to know about his child, to be part of its life. I'm not here to ruin your wedding or try to force him to be with me. I just can't raise this child alone. And it's his right, too." Tears glistened in Dahlia's eyes as she looked from Olivia to Nicholas. "Is that all?" she asked softly. She steeled herself, glancing at Olivia's ring. "What about that ring?" Olivia hesitated, then slipped the ring off her finger, cradling it in her palm. "He gave this to me a year ago. It wasn't an engagement ring, but it held a promise, one I clung to when I thought we had a future. I wore it today, because I wanted him to recognize me, to remember." Her voice broke on the last word. Dahlia's hands shook. She thought of the ring Nicholas had given her now in his pocket. 2 women, 2 rings and 1 man caught in the middle. A real-life tragedy, she thought bitterly. "Nicholas," she said, at last, "I loved you. I still love you, but I can't marry you without clarity. Do you still love Olivia?" The question hung in the air like a thundercloud. Nicholas ran a trembling hand through his hair. "I'm not in love with Olivia, the way I once was. But I care about her, about the baby, because that's part of me now, Dahlia, you have to believe me when I say my heart has been with you. But I have to do right by this child. And that might mean supporting Olivia in ways that disrupt our perfect life. Dahlia swallowed hard. I see. She took a moment glancing at Olivia, then back to Nicholas. Her voice wavered. I admire you for wanting to do the right thing truly. But I'm not sure I can stand at the altar today when so much has changed. If we're to have a future, it has to be one free of secrets, where we both respect each other's obligations. I need time to sort out my feelings. Olivia bowed her head. I'm sorry, Dahlia. I never wanted to put you in this position. Before Dahlia could respond, Elizabeth Harrington appeared with a furious expression. This wedding is still happening, she announced, her voice loud enough to draw the attention of nearby guests. We've invested too much to cancel now. Nicholas, Dahlia, you will proceed as planned. Olivia, you will be compensated handsomely, but this is not your day. The statement sent a shock wave through the small gathering. Dahlia's cheeks flushed with embarrassment and anger. Nicholas's jaw hardened. Olivia looked down, hurt and shame crossing her features. Marcus stepped forward, outraged. Elizabeth, have you lost your mind? You can't just, I can and I will, Elizabeth snapped. I have lawyers and advisors who will handle any scandal. The baby will be cared for. But Nicholas's duties as a Harrington come first. People nearby began murmuring in shock at Elizabeth's brazen commands. Dahlia closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. She whispered, This is exactly what I was afraid of, being part of an illusion. I refuse to marry under such circumstances. A stunned silence followed. Nicholas took Dahlia's hand, but she gently pulled away. She looked at Olivia, giving her a faint nod of sympathy, and then turned to walk away. Elizabeth looked aghast while Nicholas gazed after Dahlia, torn between chasing her and staying with Olivia. In that moment, the entire garden erupted into confusion. Guests realized something monumental had just happened. The wedding, once the most glamorous event of the year, was dissolving right before their eyes. Camera shutters clicked madly, capturing the meltdown of a dynasty. No one knew how this day would end, only that the illusions, so carefully woven, were unraveling at a terrifying pace. Late in the afternoon, as clouds threatened rain over the lavish Harrington estate, most of the wedding guests had dispersed. The wedding of the century had effectively been cancelled. A few close family friends lingered, hoping to support Nicholas or Dahlia, but the cheerful music and chatter were long gone. Inside the estate's private sitting room, Dahlia sat with her parents. Cassandra dabbed Dahlia's tear-streaked cheeks while Damien fiddled with his phone. Brow furrowed. The damage is done, he said quietly, reading updates from the news. But maybe there's still a chance to salvage this alliance. Nicholas might come to his senses. Dahlia said nothing. She felt as if she'd aged years in a single day, stripped of illusions about fairy tales and perfect romances. Yet a small, determined voice inside her reminded her that she deserved honesty and respect. If that meant losing Nicholas, so be it. On the other side of the mansion, Nicholas helped Olivia gather her things. She needed medical checkups and rest, not the pandemonium of a broken wedding. Marcus had arranged for a private car to take her to a nearby hotel away from the press. Nicholas insisted on accompanying her. He could no longer stand by and let others dictate his actions. Elizabeth Harrington stormed into the foyer, intercepting them before they could leave. "You are not walking out of here with her," she spat, voice laced with anger. Nicholas met his mother's glare with a resolute calm. "This is my child, and Olivia needs me. I don't care about the gossip or the fallout. I'll handle it." Elizabeth's eyes brimmed with frustrated tears. "You're throwing away everything we've built, Nicholas. Everything your father worked for. You're turning your back on your destiny." A flicker of sympathy passed through Nicholas. He knew his mother believed in her own twisted way that she was protecting him. But he also knew he couldn't let her sabotage his life anymore. "My destiny isn't just a business deal, Mother," he said gently. "It's also about being a decent human being." She let him pass, outraged, but powerless. Marcus followed them, stepping into the private car, with Olivia and Nicholas. The gates of the estate opened. Paparazzi flashed cameras capturing the surreal image of the groom, the pregnant ex-lover, and the best friend leaving the cancelled wedding together. The driver navigated through a sea of reporters, forging a path to Manhattan's quieter streets. Olivia swallowed nervously, tears drying on her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "Your mother hates me now." Nicholas shook his head. "Let me worry about her. Right now, you and the baby come first. We'll figure out how to move forward. You won't be alone anymore." She rested her head against the seat, exhaustion overtaking her. Marcus pressed a supportive hand on Nicholas's shoulder. Neither man spoke, but there was a shared understanding that life as Nicholas knew it had changed irrevocably. When they arrived at the hotel, Nicholas escorted Olivia to her suite. Marcus took his leave, giving them privacy. Inside, Olivia sank onto the bed, overwhelmed. Nicholas sat beside her, leaning his elbows on his knees, face in his hands. "Thank you," Olivia said softly, "for not abandoning us." He lifted his head, expression earnest. "Never again. I'm not sure how I'll make it work. My mother's reaction depressed Dahlia, but I won't run from my responsibilities." She laced her fingers with his, and for a brief moment they remembered the affection they once shared. But they both knew too much had happened for them to simply pick up where they left off. The baby Dahlia, the entire fiasco. It all complicated their future. Meanwhile, back at the Harrington estate, Dahlia removed her wedding gown, letting it pool on the floor. The weight of heartbreak and relief mingled in her chest. It wasn't the fairy tale ending she'd dreamed of, but she realized that maybe it wasn't an ending at all, just the start of a different path, one where she refused to compromise her self-worth for illusions or deals. Some weeks later, when the tabloids had moved on to the next scandal, Nicholas reached out to Dahlia. He apologized again, offering any possibility of reconciliation. Dahlia agreed to meet him, but this time as two equals discussing their future rather than two pawns in a social game. She wanted to ensure that if they did continue, it would be on honest ground, and that meant acknowledging Olivia and the baby openly. And Olivia. She started receiving regular prenatal care funded by Nicholas. She focused on preparing for her child's arrival, finishing her own marketing freelance projects. She wasn't sure if a full romantic reconciliation with Nicholas was in the cards, but she cherished the knowledge that he would be a father to their child. Over quiet dinners and ultrasound appointments, they formed a fragile but hopeful bond, determined to give the baby the love it deserved. As for Elizabeth Harrington, she sulked in her penthouse, occasionally venting about the tragedy that had befallen her family name. Yet even she began to realize that scandal wasn't the end of the world. Over time, she might learn that love and family hold value beyond carefully engineered alliances. But that was a journey she had to take alone. Life moved on. The wedding day that turned into a spectacle had shaken them all to their cores, revealing secrets, testing loyalties, and forging unexpected alliances. Yet sometimes, from the rubble of broken plans, a more genuine foundation emerges, one built on truth, compassion, and the determination to do what's right. Heartache can be the crucible that melts away life's illusions, forging a stronger sense of self and purpose. Nicholas, Dahlia, and Olivia each confronted realities that shattered their carefully crafted plans. In the aftermath, they learned that true connections require honesty and courage, even if it means standing up to powerful family expectations. While the billionaire's wedding never reached its storybook finish, a more authentic tale began, one of acknowledging past mistakes, embracing new life, and daring to hope for a future that's unburdened by deceit. If you were captivated by this emotional journey, complete with betrayals, high-stakes drama, and unexpected bonds, don't let the story end here. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more riveting tales that peel back the glamour and reveal the raw, heartfelt struggles that unite us all. Your support fuels each new chapter, reminding us that every ending can spark a bold new beginning.